So for this, I will be showing you how to do a lesson plan, and here's the format for it. It's a little lengthy. So we're going to start off with learning community at the top right here. Is it urban, suburban, or rural? What are the demographics? What's the school district and campus reflection? So is it elementary, middle school, high school? Is it a preschool? Classroom context. Is the classroom self-contained, team teaching, or block, etc.? In the classroom arrangement and seating, are the chairs facing forward towards the teacher? How is it set up? Next, you'll have to document the materials and resources. Things you use to do the lesson plan. So in this section, list all materials needed for this lesson. For websites, YouTube and other electronic resources provide links with a brief synopsis, sample of all documents created and used in the lesson plan. The documents should be located at the back of the lesson plan in appendices. This includes student activity and/or assignment instructions and PowerPoints. Moving on to the next one, safety. What are the conditions of being protected from or unlikely to cause danger, risk, or injury to classmates, school, and self? This section should include safety concerns and precautions specific to lesson or experiment. When appropriate, require students to include safety information in laboratory written work such as statement or paragraph indicating the safety equipment used and safety practices followed. Students' compliance with safe techniques and practices may become a part of a teacher's evaluation of laboratory work. A record of this evaluation should be included in the lesson plan as legal proof of this additional safety instructions. Next we have TEKS and TAKS. This is what the subject-specific TEKS and technology-specific TEKS. So you can follow the guidelines at these links. Moving on to instructional objectives. This lesson objectives must be clearly identified in line with district and/or state educational standards. The goal of setting objects and goals is also to make sure you know what you're trying to accomplish with the lesson. This helps you determine what the students should take away from this lesson and how you will go about ensuring that they are successful in mastering the material at hand. So this is where you want what is your goal for the lesson plan, essentially. Moving on to the next page, anticipatory set. So, activate prior knowledge, make connections. Before you dig into the meat of your lesson's instruction, it's important to set the stage for your students by tapping into their prior knowledge and giving the objects a context. In the anticipatory set section, you outline what you will say and/or present your students before the direct instruction of the lesson begins. This is a great way for you to make sure you're prepared to introduce the material and can do in a way that your students will relate easily. Next we have input or procedure. Instruction. This is the section where you will explicitly delineate how you'll present the lesson plan's concepts to your students. This is basically what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Your methods of direct instruction could include reading a book, displaying diagrams, showing real-life examples of the subject matter, or using props. It's important to consider the various learning styles with your class and determine what methods teaching will best resonate. Sometimes creativity can pay off in engaging students and helping them to understand the material. And oftentimes, whenever you have children that have disabilities, you may have to change it up too for them. Same thing. Next, input or procedure modeling. I do, you watch. Making sure the students get it right the first time depends on the knowledge or processes to be shown and demonstrated by an expert or by someone who has mastered what it is to be demonstrated or shown. In addition to the instructor, prepared students can certainly model the focused skill, process, or concept for peers. Instructors could also use a video for this portion. Moving on to page 3, guided practice. This is the time where you will oversee and guide students practicing what they have learned so far. Under your supervision, the students are given a chance to practice and apply the skills you taught them through direct instruction. The guided practice activities can be defined as either individual or cooperative learning. Independent practice, independent of teacher. Students will demonstrate whether or not they are absorbed the lesson's learning goals. Through the independent practice, students have a chance to reinforce the skills and synthesize their new knowledge by completing tasks on their own and away from the teacher's guidance. So after you think you've mastered the lesson plan, it's time for the students to try it on their own. Assessment. The lesson doesn't end after your students complete a worksheet. The assessment section is one of the most important parts of all. This is where you assess the final outcome of the lesson and to what extent the learning objectives were achieved. Next, we have reteach. When you're reading, needed teachers should deconstruct the standard by breaking it down into progressive learning targets, understand exactly where the student currently is on the progression, know what the steps are needed for that student continue toward meeting the grade level standards. Clearly communicate the learning targets in student-friendly terms with the student. Encourage the students set goals for themselves as they are learning to develop self-efficacy. Enrichment extension. Enrichment extension is based on a topic the student is interested in that will help lead them into a new depth learning, or these projects can be based on the topic you are currently teaching, but allow students to have a compacted curriculum to help challenge the students. Teachers need to create enrichment projects that allow them to dig deeper in that you are covering. A good example of this would be going home, make a poster board about what they learned, or a research project to help them do even more. Extension activity is an activity that leads the learning of the lesson plan. Extension activities can be done in small groups or by a single student. These extension activities are leveled to fit the student. For gifted students, these are challenging. For struggling students, these activities can be reinforcing skills activities. Students don't choose their extension activity like the enrichment project. And finally, we have closure. This portion of the lesson plan provides the closure to the classroom, to the lesson. As you design this, ask yourself, how can you encourage further inquiry regarding the lesson topic? And this concludes our lesson plan format.